How's everyone?
All right.
Let's get some energy.
We're in a nightclub after all.
Yeah, Jesus.
Come on. Thank you all for being with us all today. So we're super excited today to premiere Shape-Shifting. So Shape-Shifting is our original creator-led serialized content series that's focused solely on GLP-1s and the widespread impact that they're having across categories, across culture, across health, all of it. So I'm Dan Rubin, Group President at Havas Health. Happy to be here with Lars Bengston, who's our Chief Content Officer at Havas Health, and Kevin Grosch, who's the CEO of Maiden Network. We partnered with Maiden Network on this for good reason. So Maiden Network is a creator media company. They've produced some of the most impactful creator-led content series that are out there. And what's especially great about them is they not only know how to propel creator content, they know how to integrate brands into that content. So that was really the thinking behind bringing Kevin and the Maiden Network team in. So I'm going to talk just for a minute about why we did this, and then Lars and Kevin are going to dig in and preview Shape-Shifting. So the reason we did this is probably pretty obvious. We believe that GLP-1s are the biggest health revolution of our time. The numbers back that up. I know Eric was up here earlier talking with Superwomen. The analysts project the GLP-1 market to get close to $500 billion by the early 2030s. It's probably no surprise how that number is going to be propelled. The rate at which obesity is rising is staggering, right? And it's not only here in the US, it's all across the world. And I could give you all the stats in the world, right? All you need to do is spend 1 minute on social media, right? If you scroll for 1 minute, you're going to be met with a personal experience. You're going to be served an ad from a compounding pharmacy, Noom, et cetera. So the volume of creator content that's out there is honestly unparalleled to anything we've seen in health, and probably reaching the magnitude of what we see in any category. But when we're out there and we're being served content, and you don't even need to be online. I'm from New York. If you walk the city streets, the out-of-home presence is remarkable, right? You see advertising every single block. And what we're served as consumers when it comes to GLP-1s is content on opposite ends of the spectrum. So you have highly scientific content and highly sensationalized content. The highly scientific content largely being driven by healthcare professionals, nutritionists, life sciences companies, talking about the science behind GLP-1, talking about how it interacts with the body, et cetera. On the other side of the spectrum, highly sensational content. These are people largely with the best of intentions, sharing their experiences, fact, but truthfully, they're not armed with the facts to educate. But the world we live in today, creators are educators, right? Those are the facts. And what we're left with is, and this is a quote from a recent research study we fielded at Havas, is people who don't know what they're putting into their body. This is a really scary stat, right? I don't know anything about the medicine. I just know that I'm losing weight. These are serious medicines. This is crazy, right? These are injectable medicines that have tremendously positive impacts if you're an eligible patient, but the fact that people are just following whatever is out there and taking it for bond is really concerning. Compounding the situation is that creators are making a meaningful impact on health decisions. And I don't think the slides are advancing, but that's okay. I don't know where to point it. Anyway, what the next slide would say is that the creator boom is extending far beyond our consumer habits, right? So people are following creators' message and direction well beyond food and travel and lifestyle. And there's a piece of data from Meta that says 74% of people are more likely to ask their physician for a medicine if they heard about it from a creator. That's kind of a crazy fact, right? So in today's world, serious decisions are being driven by creators online. So when we look at this, what we have is a cultural transformation that is without credible education, which is kind of scary, right? It's an amazing innovation, an amazing transformation, but people aren't well educated. And on the industry side, what we have are, this is a jumpy thing. On the industry side, what we have are verticals all across that are being impacted by this transformation, from travel to CPG to food to retail, et cetera. So at Havas, we sit at the intersection of health, of creativity, of culture. we really couldn't look away from this opportunity. The opportunity to fill that gap between highly scientific and highly sensationalized content is something we felt we had to step in and do something about.
Thanks, Dan. And it's in this very spirit that we introduce to everybody shapeshifting. It's first thing I'll say about this is it's not very commonplace to have a major advertising network, a creative company, investing in its own original IP. Usually this is something that we package and present over to our partners because that's the core of our business. But as we recognize our leadership position being the biggest health network in the world, but also having this creative prowess, we thought it was the responsible thing to do to not only publish facts, myth-busting, and entertainment in the form of an original YouTube series, because that's where people are getting their information, but also show the industry and our partners, both in health and outside of health, what good content looks like and how to build audiences from the ground up. So with Shapeshifting, this is an original series exploring GLP-1s as a cultural shift. As you're going to see in a second when we watch some of it, this is not a pro-GLP-1 or an anti-GLP-1 series. This is a self-correcting series to help people make better decisions. That unfolds over 9 feature episodes that are creator-led over 3 very friendly YouTube and online style formats and about 40 cross-platform assets. What that means is every single episode is not in and of itself just an asset. Each episode is an ecosystem in and of itself. And Kevin is going to talk a little about that more. But how about we stop talking for a little bit and we show you a bit of the first episode? Would everyone like that? All right, let's go. Well, you have to wait one more slide. Gotcha. Just making sure you're paying attention. So one thing is, we call this a premiere and a launch. We silently launched this on December 20th, just before the holidays. And we did that intentionally before CES to build a audience, to build a viewing base, and to collect some data, which thankfully we don't have to fudge because the numbers are amazing, and we're going to show them to you later. But one thing that we'd say is these 9 episodes are built to be comprehensive and broad at first, to bring people, GLP-1 curious, GLP-1 users who are searching these topics every day, into the ecosystem, and gradually over the next 9 and the next 9 and the next 9 continue to get more niche. So the first episode, which we're going to premiere a little bit of, is talking about a broad spectrum of how GLP-1s are a game changer, how they're changing industry, how they're changing people's lives, perceptions, stigmas, etc. Episode 2, we talk about side effects specifically. Episode 3, we're going more into combining exercise and diet with GLP-1s. So every episode is long form in nature, but we've taken about a 5-minute snippet of the first episode to show you.
Millions of Americans have turned to prescription medications to lose weight.
Their actual name are GLP-1.
GLP-1. GLP-1.
This is truly a revolution in the field of medicine.
Imagine a world where people live longer, healthier lives. A world where obesity and its related illnesses are footnotes in medical textbooks. I did, and I realized that this isn't some distant, unattainable dream. It's a potential reality that scientists are actively researching, fueled by millions of dollars in funding. And it's thanks to a class of medications known as GLP-1s.
No question, GLP-1 weight loss drugs are popular.
1 in 8 American adults say they have taken a GLP-1 drug.
So what is this research showing? Can GLP-1s truly revolutionize and improve our health and our society? Let's explore. Welcome to Shapeshifting. Throughout history, medical breakthroughs have fundamentally changed our world and our lives. The invention of antibiotics, the development of vaccines, and now we're witnessing another transformative moment with GLP-1 receptor agonists. To understand their impacts, you first need to understand what GLP-1s are and how they work. I'm not a scientist or a doctor, but this series has been co-written by them. GLP-1s, or glucagon-like peptide-1 agonists, represent a quantum leap forward in how we think about treating obesity. Originally developed to treat type 2 diabetes, they have rapidly evolved into the most powerful weight management tools in modern medicine. These drugs work by mimicking a hormone that targets the pancreas as well as nerves in the brain and the gut. The main organs involved in appetite regulation and gastric emptying, or more simply, they give you the feeling of fullness and reduce your hunger. I only found out about GLP-1s when they were suddenly everywhere. But they aren't a new technology. As it turns out, patients have been using GLP-1s to manage diabetes for over 2 decades. During that time, doctors noticed something interesting. Their patients were losing weight, and not just a little bit, significant amounts. Some lost over 5% of their body weight. For years, doctors and researchers have been searching for a solution to address quickly rising obesity rates, and it was right there in front of them. GLP-1's impact on weight proved to be an exciting treatment to a growing problem. But what's really impressive is the adoption of these drugs over the last 4 years. It has been nothing short of astronomical. But as we stand on the precipice of this potential health revolution, it does make me think, are we really heading towards a utopia where GLP-1s create a healthier, more vibrant society for all? Or is there a catch? For starters, metabolic health is not just a US problem, it's a global concern. The numbers are staggering. Over 2/5 of the world is overweight or obese. That is billions of people, and the cost is just as high. In America, overweight and obesity alone cost $260 billion annually in medical bills. Globally, that number could reach a staggering $4.32 trillion, according to the World Obesity Federation. I was shocked to find out that in 2022, 43% of adults and 20% of children and adolescents around the world met the BMI criteria for the medical condition being overweight. Another 16% of adults and 8% of children had a BMI meeting the criteria for obesity. Addressing obesity is not only a matter of aesthetics, it is crucial for preventing a cascade of potential health problems that can severely diminish someone's quality of life and longevity. Obesity is linked to a higher risk of a bunch of serious health problems like heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and certain cancers. Moderate obesity is associated with a reduction in life expectancy of about 3 years, while severe obesity can shorten lifespan by up to 14 years. That's the kind of damage you do being a lifelong smoker. If GLP-1s can help reverse the trend, we're looking at a major shift in public health. But this isn't just about weight. These drugs work like a molecular Swiss Army knife. In the heart, improving blood flow. In the brain, reducing inflammation, and in the immune system, calming chronic inflammation. The applications beyond weight loss and diabetes are still being studied, but the results have been promising. GLP-1s are revolutionizing how we treat not just obesity, but potentially addiction and other conditions driven by powerful cravings. They have the potential to help people regain control over their impulses, something that has become increasingly challenging in our modern world of abundance. They're even showing promise in treating Alzheimer's, reducing brain shrinkage by almost 50% and cognitive decline by up to 18% in early trials.
A small sneak peek. Everybody, we don't have a QR code, but official shapeshifting on YouTube. So, like I said, we launched this 3 weeks ago, and the results have been so far exceeding every one of our expectations, signaling that we are striking a vein into culture. First and foremost, 50% watched beyond 30 seconds. That doesn't seem very, impressive or anything until you understand what that necessarily means. Across YouTube, the average time, the main drop-off is about 10 to 15 seconds. So if somebody is watching over 30 seconds, we've already got them on the first important hook. The strong hooks in the very beginning that we've created are keeping people's attention. Those 30 seconds and those watchers have led to a staggering over 5-minute average view duration across the 3 episodes. That is 2 minutes above the industry average. And this, you don't really need to do any creative math. If you've ever watched YouTube, if you take a picture, a long form video or a short form video, a lot of times people are watching at 2x the speed or watching a little bit. The ability for us to chapterize throughout the series, throughout the episodes, allow us to make this nonlinear. So this isn't necessarily 0 to 5 minutes. Audiences are coming in, staying beyond 30 seconds, going to the areas that concern them the most, and then they're sharing it and they're engaging. That 5-minute duration has led to a pretty awesome 75,000 hours watched across 3 videos right now. And if you notice, these 1.1 million views, that should be a few years ago, that would be the view count number that we would put front and center. Now, today, not so much, because platforms like YouTube and social media, platforms like Meta and TikTok, etc., are not necessarily prioritizing views as much as qualified, legitimate engagement.
Sorry, just to jump in one second here. An older version of this deck had some notes about how much better some of these stats are than Made in Network channels more broadly. And I don't know if it was taken out to like keep my sadness in check. Obviously, I'm incredibly excited about these metrics, but I do think that, just to echo something Lars was saying, that I do think it says something about the hunger for this information for the audience more broadly. When you see this type of engagement for the length that people are watching, it's really clear that there's an appetite for this information. And our hope is, with these episodes that we produced and the ones that are forthcoming, is that we're providing a service to this audience in a way that's going to help them gain some clarity about something that they've heard about, but they don't have the details. And I also want to just highlight this the point that Lars made about the importance from a platform perspective about those watch times. We designed these episodes, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, as a baseline of knowledge for the viewer. And the hope is that over time, these videos become a resource for people that are going on and have a question and they need to seek something out. And the platforms themselves, YouTube in particular, are so prioritizing watch time as the trigger point for what high quality programming is, that it becomes part of their recommendation engine and is served higher to audiences going forward. So while we're really happy with the viewership numbers, we're really happy with that 50% watch threshold, the longer that they're staying with it is the biggest indicator to the algorithms that the content is working, therefore creating a snowball effect, which is going to make this content have a lasting impact, which is a big part of the goal of this campaign.
Exactly right. And it's actually a perfect segue to the next one, which we asked ourselves this question. We discuss it with Made in Network and we optimize it all the time. But why is this working? And the answer is complicated, but it can be broken down to these sort of 4 pieces: genre, format, topic, and voice. So we'll go real quick, and I'd love your perspective on this too, Kevin. Like for genre, the GLP-1 space is a heavily medical area. However, it has broken into the public to the point where it can be considered pop culture. So we are actually going into a genre that is, for better or for worse, for the industry, a pop culture moment. Format, the way that we are describing these videos, the way that we are manifesting this content. You saw Chelsea's bit for the 5 minutes. That was a video essay. That is a tried and true format on YouTube that works. The other 2, led by our other 2 hosts, Trace and Ashley, are listicles and video listicles and expert reacts, which is a host as the affable but potentially non-educated person that keeps the show going, and obviously an expert that fills in the blanks. We're taking the formats, we're not reinventing the wheel, we're actually integrating into what really works. The topic, of course, GLP-1, it's a massive space, but it has to be said, there's thousands of GLP-1 videos that are permeating across YouTube, TikTok, Meta, etc. Every single day. We're just actually cutting through the clutter because of how we built the show. And of course, the voice. We need this to be entertaining because this is YouTube and people will tune out if it's not. However, we could never, ever sacrifice the scientific rigor and the quality that went into it. Some of the most fun meetings I've had as a show creator was having the Made in Network showrunners and our Havas Health medical experts and anthropologists battling it out multiple times a week to make sure that we're fitting that balance between medically accurate but entertaining.
Yeah, one of the things that was so exciting for myself and for us as an organization to be a part of this was the fact that we were experiencing firsthand how the conversation around GLP-1s was permeating pop culture. And we've seen in other areas of medicine or or financial advice or the misinformation that can be spread. And so we were really excited about being part of putting out something proactive that could be accurate to the truth. And at the same time, we also want to make sure that it's reaching audiences, that it's finding people to watch the content. We could have the best content in the world, but if it's not taking into consideration of how people are actually discovering content and then consuming it on a regular basis, it's a losing effort. And so these different points here were essential in the development of how the shows and the individual episodes have come together. Lars spoke about the genre itself. We knew that there was energy and excitement around the topic, but when we started looking at how we would execute it, how we would deliver that information, looking at the formats and the trends that are currently the modes of communication for people on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, etc., we wanted to be communicating in the form and the manner that they do. And that we walk through each individual one of these bullets and many others, some of which we'll talk about, to ensure that the content was actually positioned and set up for success.
And we're learning every day. Like, we have 9 topics at the moment right now, but, to let everybody in on some early data, episode 2 is the episode about side effects. That episode did almost 15,000 organic views on its own. Simply because when you use YouTube for a search engine, you are likely going to type in side effects if you're looking about GLP-1. This is the content that showed up. And there is not only just the most organic views, the most subscribers, the most engagement from there. And to Kevin's point, there's one area from the beginning that we wanted to do, because YouTube is a democratic platform. Anybody can publish, anybody can get can post anything they want. But to be able to create a serialized program that feeds into the algorithm, that gets into the Discover feeds, that actually achieves our goal of being that knowledge base that Kevin said, we had to optimize and build this from the ground up with retention in mind. And Kevin, what do you think about these 4 areas here? Because this is something that we talked about really before we even started writing episode 1.
Right, and the interesting thing about the creator economy or creator culture is that it's always been a marriage of art and science. And what I mean by that is that many creators, before they even know what they're going to talk about, they're studying and kind of reverse engineering how the platforms operate. And for better or worse, the platforms change over time, the things in which they prioritize. Years ago, there were different KPIs that YouTube's algorithms were looking for than they are today. But what you're able to pull out from basically looking at content that has been successful is what are the triggers that are actually pushing content to the forefront. It can't just be a measure of quality. It has to be other metrics. And we as an organization have been able to see from the front lines and working with talent that are putting out some of the most watched content in a variety of verticals, what's working there and what isn't. And from our own studies, from other creator data, it time and time, right now at least, comes back to some of these key metrics that we're looking at from the beginning. Average view duration is a really important thing. I talked a lot about that. Completion rate, the still watching after 30 seconds, shares per video. We didn't even have it up here, but another metric that's super important is going to be the click-through rate when you see the thumbnail. Our thumbnails on this are destroying some of our other channels in the network, so that is definitely an area that I'm looking at for those channels and what's actually working here versus those. But to Lars's point, this is a constant iterative process. So even with the thumbnails that we're putting up, there's A/B testing and which is resonating with audiences more than others. We're looking at how we're framing up the titles to encourage the click-through rate. And then we really are relying on the authority, the kind of the education, and making the episodes as strong as they can be from a content perspective, since once we capture the audience's eye, if they then get to the video and it isn't helpful or it's boring, you have to strike the appropriate balance to keep them around, and that's where the work with the Havas team, with the experts that we've included in the series, has been so instrumental, because not only have we kind of utilized our tasteful clickbait as a term that we often use internally, we've included some real substance so that when people get there, they're left with a feeling of having a real takeaway from the content itself.
And this should be super, super encouraging for brands as well, because as everybody knows, I think everyone's probably been a part of this, where we put out something on YouTube, we put a lot of paid behind it, and then it kind of goes into the nothing sphere. Where today, if brands operate with the same principles that govern good creator-led content, they too can take the success. This is one of the main reasons that we as Havas decided to invest in these 9 episodes, in the whole package, because we really believed in the importance of incubating and growing a sustainable and truly beneficial audience, not only to us as the leaders in the GLP-1 space, but also to our brand partners, because as Dan said, there's not a single industry that that doesn't have a voice in this space. And so on that topic, we've been really, really blessed with a nice, early, fast-growing, addressable audience that's growing every single episode. Every episode, we're seeing growth that's going this way in terms of subscribers, in terms of shares, organic views, etc. But we wanted to bring everybody to the party, and we had spent a lot of time asking ourselves, who is the audience for this? And the overall answer is everyone, but really breaking it down, it's those who are GLP-1 curious. These are potential users. These are friends and family of users. These are the science curious. If you're someone like me, if I had no intention of, if I didn't have anything to do with the show, I love this kind of stuff anyway. I'm interested in seeing what the latest technology is in healthcare and science, etc. And also the user itself, to Dan's point, those that are taking the medication, having no idea what effects it has on its body, this is a hormone. At the very least, I think as leaders, we need to be able to communicate what it's actually doing, some of the very encouraging, promising results and studies, as well as some of the things to look out for if you're eating anything you want. Is that okay? If I am a runner every day, do I have to change my exercise routine? These are all things, those are real questions that people need answers to that we address in our content. Anything you want to say on the addressable side?
No, I think, so we've seen some really good traction early. And Lars mentioned, we invested in this purposely, right? This was a concept that we had traditionally, right, at agencies. We bring this idea to our clients and we work with them to produce it. We felt really, really strongly that we need to build this content to build the addressable audience. But at this point, we're at the earliest stage, right? We're seeing great signals and we need brand integrations to make this better, right? This is an opportunity where we have a platform and are building a platform where we can be of service to brands and increase their reach and increase their engagement with our audience. And I also think we have an opportunity to use the power of brands and businesses to integrate content that can serve the consumer. So Kevin, I mean, this is what you guys do all day. Would love to hear your perspective on how you've seen other brands integrate into creator-led content and how that might look here.
Yeah, I mean, we collectively have been thinking about this as if we're a creator. Right, we're building this with a point of view, with an expertise, to build a platform to share this content. And as Dan said, these are early days, but we're really excited at the momentum that it has, and we're confident that's going to continue to grow, knowing that the catalog of episodes is growing and the audience is growing with it. And just as any creator does as they start to accumulate an audience, as they start to build a community that is following what they're doing, they look for partners to help propel that forward. And most oftentimes for creators, that starts with one simple area, which is kind of a native integration into a pre-programmed episode. They have an episode that's coming out, and they have a partner that's coming in to sponsor those episodes. But as time goes on, we've done a lot of incredible work with brand partners to incorporate them in ways that go well beyond just this episode's brought to you by. We've done so many interesting programs where we're actually working alongside the brands as creative partners to help share their point of view, to help to accomplish their specific objectives in a space. And I'll talk more specifically about kind of the different categories or different types of ways we work with partners, but I wanted to share two quick examples with you, so you could see kind of how that comes to life. So the first is a program that we've run for a long time now with Rocket Mortgage, and with their focus being how do they educate audiences around the home buying process long before they're actually at the point of securing a mortgage. What all goes into it? What's your credit score? Why does that matter to the process? All these really basic, essential questions they wanted to be able to answer not only in their own programming as a publisher or creator themselves, but actually also out into the world integrated into creator programming. And so we actually launched with them a whole series of programs with creator talent where we were asking creators at different stages of their home buying process, whether it was a newlywed couple buying a home together for the first time. They happened to be a massive creator couple who shot their whole world in their home, so we could document that whole process and show that as part of what they're doing. Or when a celebrity chef that we represent wanted to develop a new kitchen and they needed a construction mortgage to be able to build that out in a new way. We looked at with all these different touch points that were important for Rocket Mortgage for when they knew people were in the home buying process or the mortgage looking for a mortgage, and we found really compelling ways to integrate that naturally into programming that was organic to the creators' platforms and their audience. That was a wildly successful program, both from an integration standpoint and from an owned content standpoint for Rocket Mortgage. And it has been something that not only was able to reach consumers at those kind of purchase points, but also had a direct impact on their search rankings when people were typing in how to get a mortgage or buying a first home. Those were KPIs that were important to the campaign that we could develop through the process.
For those that don't have 20/20 vision, that says number 6 to number 2 in SEO. Oh. I could barely read that from over here.
Oh, perfect. I'm glad it's behind me. The other example that I wanted to give, maybe a little less high profile in terms of the brand, but was a really cool company that we've been working with over this past year called Danish Creamery. They are a high-end butter company, the best type of partner to be working with. And what was really interesting about Danish Creamery is that their objectives to be able to was primarily brand awareness. They're kind of a new entrant into many of the consciousness of these food-loving consumers, and they wanted to do it in a way that was authentic to their brand. And what we didn't want to do is just the kind of the first part of the process was having the butter show up in a ton of different food programming across the internet. But then we wanted to go deeper. We wanted to actually we sat down with Danish Creamery and we asked them, what type of use cases are important to you? How can we do something more than that, this episode brought to you by and placing the product in the episode? And we were able to develop some really interesting series that we would not have done on our own that helped us with our talent develop series that have performed incredibly well and worked uniquely for Danish Creamery. And kind of tying that back to what we believe shapeshifting represents, there's a world of content and topics that we could explore. And one of the areas that we think is really incredibly powerful in working with partners is to be able to align with like where their point of view is on GLP-1s, and then how that could be more fully fleshed out in an episode, a series, or something more large scale across the shape-shifting platform. And that's probably a good transition to this next slide, where I'll kind of go back through some of these categories of ways that we're currently working with brand partners across our other channels and how we're thinking about doing that similarly with shape-shifting. So the first is kind of those head and tail host reads, as I mentioned. We have an incredible slate of episodes, some of which Lars was talking about earlier, that are coming out over the coming months that are perfect opportunities, in our estimation, for specific partners to be able to come in and to help tell that story alongside us. And in these host head and tail reads, we're often developing the language, the messaging for the host to communicate about that brand's participation. The stepping up from that is actually developing a custom episode together. How are we actually looking at a specific topic that might be really important to a particular partner, and how do we craft an episode in the aesthetic and the tone of the voice that the channel has developed already to bring that specific point of view to life? Then there is custom segments, and this could be across multiple episodes, kind of a reoccurring presence of a participating partner within the storytelling. Going back to the Danish Creamery example, Danish Creamery has become a reoccurring character in a lot of these food channels publishing cadence because their audience knows, they know that like they're going to be a use case for butter, and there comes Danish Creamery, and it creates this really strong association between the information that is being delivered and then the affiliation of that brand partner. And then lastly, and maybe most interestingly, is this opportunity for full series partnerships. And this could be across a current slate of programming, but it could also be those specific points of view and perspective that could come to life in offshoots of kind of our main thread of programming. And this is where we can really go into interesting topics, very specific use cases, and allow us to just more fully explore really important areas that GLP-1s are opening up for the public.
Yeah, it's not lost on me. We've talked about butter a lot in a GLP-1 presentation. But, we mentioned that there is no category that is untouched by this transformation, right? So Kevin talked through what the integrations could look like. But if you take it maybe just one step further and you look at travel, right? If there could be a custom episode or custom series on how weight loss changes travel, right? You look at beauty and fashion. That goes from aesthetics to high fashion to ready to wear day-to-day fashion, down to CPG, right? There is no shortage of focus right now on how CPG brands are looking to enter new businesses, to innovate within their businesses to serve these communities. So these are all ripe. These are three of many ripe categories where a brand or a business does not have to have a pro or con position on GLP-1 to integrate into this platform, because this is agnostic. This is fact-based, credible content where we're just laying out the facts in an entertaining way. So we think the possibilities are endless. And ultimately, we built this because we believe, back to the start, this is the biggest health transformation that we've seen and maybe we'll ever see if you look at what the projections are. And we believe it's an opportunity now. There's an inflection point. We could shape or be shaped. And we chose to enter the conversation. And we look forward to continuing to build on this. And hopefully a year from now, we're coming back and talking about all the brand integrations that we've developed. So with that, open it up for any questions.
Or just cocktails.
Or that.
Let's do cocktails.
Or butter.
Come talk to us afterwards. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, everyone.